You're listening to Derek J on the Angel Clark Show. Hello? I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl with a good I would call her.
Hello and welcome all. This is the Angel Clark Show, and no, it's not Angel here. It's Derek J, and you can learn about me at my website, derekj.me. Now, as I reported yesterday, there's some bittersweet news about the Angel Clark Show. It won't be going forward as a daily show after today. It will return to LRN next week on Wednesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. at lrn.fm. That's Standard Eastern Time. I'm broadcasting from here in Keene in the Shire this Friday, October 3rd, 2014. It's 5 p.m. here. And let's get started. There's breaking news about ISIS beheading another. This time, it's a British hostage, Alan Henning. We've got more news stories. Reason.com reports, forget secession. Americans want to boot California. What about your state? We'll see how that fares. Plus, The Guardian reports about a judge who is hearing the Guantanamo force-feeding argument, and he is not going to allow it to be kept secret. We've got the scoop on that. Plus, antiwar.com has an original piece by Reese Ehrlich, who writes 10 myths about Obama's latest war in Iraq and Syria, plus much more. But let's get to this breaking article first. ISIS was holding hostage British aid worker Alan Henning. Today, they released video of his beheading. I don't have the video. I just learned about this news story minutes ago, and so I will be searching desperately to find whatever video I can bring to you or audio for the listeners. But here's the story from thegatewaypundit.com. The ISIS beheader says in the video, quote, "The blood of David Haynes was on your hands, Cameron. Daniel Henning will also be slaughtered, but his blood is on the hands of the British Parliament." Alan Henning made this statement in the video before his death. "Hi, I'm Alan Henning. Because of our Parliament's decision to attack the Islamic State, I, as a member of the British public, will now pay the price for that decision." Alan had gone to Syria, quote, to help his Muslim friends. And you can see a picture of him here if you're watching along on the video portion of this program, which can be found at my website, derekj.me. Now, you can see from the article, it states via The Guardian that Henning's life was threatened in the video in which ISIS beheaded David Haynes. According to ISIS accounts, the terror group sent audio messages to Henning's wife of her husband pleading for his life. Barbara Henning, his wife, released her own plea for his safety, but it was to no avail. ISIS released video of the beheading of Alan Henning today. And you can see from a tweet via I Heart Islamic State, the Islamic State has released a videotaped beheading of UK national Alan Henning, promising to execute US national Peter Kassig next. So apparently, the terror group promises to behead former U.S. Army Ranger Peter Kassig next. We'll report more on this story as we learn more as this story develops, but very concerning to see beheadings continuing and peace so far away. Now, I wanted to start out this episode with something happy. I had a positive news story about forgetting secession. Americans want to boot California from the Union. It's so hard to make a transition from something so shocking and horrifying to something upbeat and positive. But let's try and do it together. I'm going to take a big glass of water, take a big drink, take a deep breath, clear your head, clear your thoughts. Keep your eyes open if you're driving. Peace, peace, peace. All right. JD Tusil over at Reason.com's Hit and Run blog writes, almost a quarter of Americans think taking their state out of the union is a swell idea, a Reuters Ipsos poll told us not long ago. But why go yourself if you can kick the other guy out? So Fox News hired Anderson Robbins Research and Shaw & Company Research to ask over 1,000 registered voters if they thought booting a state or two to the curb was just good sense. One of the 17% who thought that was a fine idea, of the 17% who thought that was a fine idea, there was an overwhelming favorite who gets tossed from the moving vehicle, California. Yes, the Golden State was the choice of a whopping 53% of respondents who thought yanking a star off the flag would make the world a better place. New York came second with 25% of votes, and Texas was third at 20%. I stand second to none in my astonishment at the degree to which Californians have managed to render almost uninhabitable one of the nicest stretches of real estate on the planet. The state's dead last business environment has driven 1/6 of construction workers to the shadowy economy, and the official response has been to tighten the screws with cheerleading from the contracting industry, rather than loosen the rules. California ranks 49th in overall freedom, according to the Mercatus Center's Freedom Index of the 50 states. Despite loosening of marijuana and marriage laws, it adds a high incarceration rate, tough restrictions on guns, gambling, and pretty much anything else you might want to do to brutal economic regulations. So yes, booting California from the union and from a say in the laws under which we live might just give the rest of us some breathing space. But I can't help but think, with a glance up and down the East Coast, that we shouldn't stop there. Or maybe we could go back to screwing things up in our own states without inflicting our preferred disasters on the neighborhoods. And now a quick clip from the Mercatus Institute. Take a listen.
California ranks 49th in overall freedom and dead last on regulatory freedom in the country. The state has spent a decade at the bottom of our ranking. Net migration out of the state since 2000 is over 4%. On the fiscal side, the Golden State is highly indebted, and it spends significantly more than the rest of the country in many budgetary categories. Citizens face an above-average tax burden as well. The situation doesn't improve when we look at economic regulation. The state authorizes rent control, and eminent domain abuse has seen only token reform. Labor laws impose many costs on employers, and occupational licensing is rampant. The state's liability system is one of the worst in the country and is continuing to decline. Despite a reputation for social liberalism, California scores poorly on personal freedom. It has a high incarceration rate and allows little gambling. It scores well on marriage freedom. California can improve their freedom ranking by scaling back state spending, reducing debt, enacting tort reform, and loosening occupational licensing.
What do you think? Are they going to do any of that? You can learn more.
Click one of the following links.
No, you don't need to click links. You just need to go to the Mercatus Institute website, mercatus.com or reason.com to learn more about this article. Terrific, by JD Tusil. What do you think? Would you kick California out of the union or some other state? How about your own? Turns out 1 in 4 Americans would kick out their own. Not a bad idea. I know I live here in New Hampshire, and we would love to see secession take hold in the Granite State. Maybe it could be its own free state. Learn more about that at freestateproject.org. When we return, we've got another story to share with you on the Angel Clark Show. The Guardian about Guantanamo Bay. This is the Angel Clark Show.
A great new book is hard to find, with today's authors glorifying the state. I have an alternative, and his name is Taryn Lupo at lupolit.com. Taryn has written over 20 Liberty-themed short stories, manuals, and books, ranging from nonfiction, humor, horror, and romance to young adult and children's fiction. Read the words that reflect your views. Read Taryn Lupo at lupolit.com. A traveler? Well, check out Taryn's free audiobooks, perfect for your lifestyle. Stop supporting authors that support the state. Instead, support lupolit.com.
Since time began, tyrants have taken aim at personal liberties. Now there's a movie that aims back.
The government has no more right to tell us what to put in our bodies than they have to take our guns or tell us what books we can read.
6 drug police were eaten by bears while raiding a marijuana farm.
On your knees, you dirty hippies! On your knees! What's the problem, officer?
Today, many cops who enforce pot laws do so only because it provides them with cushy jobs, good benefits, and a chance to push people around.
I was an undercover narcotics officer. The drug war is nothing but a farce.
The Second Amendment says you gotta keep you and your gat intact.
Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. A film by Michael W. Dean and Nima Vadati.
DVD available now at gunsandweed.com or on Amazon. That's gunsandweed.com. Makes the perfect gift. Remember, that's gunsandweed.com.
Now that you've found the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM, you may want to help expose others to our great programs. To assist you in doing so, you'll find resources at promote.lrn.fm, including details on how to get a free bumper sticker, quarter-page flyers you can print out and distribute, banners for your website, as well as files that will allow you to make your own custom banners and graphics. Visit promote.lrn.fm and help bring new listeners to the Liberty Radio Network. That's promote.lrn.fm.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a nonprofit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Instead of just listening, you can also watch. See the Liberty Radio Network's key New Hampshire-based live shows via our studio cam at cam.lrn.fm. Plus, you'll still be able to listen to the Liberty Radio Network via the cam feed in high quality 24/7, even when there's no live show being produced in our Keene studio. But wait, there's more. Our chat room is built into the cam page so you can interact with other listeners online. Listen, watch, and chat, all free at cam.lrn.fm. That's cam.lrn.fm.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, add yourself to the Shire map at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
What's up next? Visit the Liberty Radio Network program guide to find out at shows.lrn.fm. That's shows.lrn.fm.
There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek Shea on the Angel Clark Show.
Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show. We are live at LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network. And I want to let you know that this segment of the Angel Clark Show has been brought to you by a friend of the Angel Clark Show. Yes, that's right. A friend of the Angel Clark Show has responded to the call and is doing what they can to help promote liberty through our listeners. You can do the same. All you have to do is go to the website, radiofreedom.us. Once you're there, I want you to scroll down. You'll find a chat room. There you can interact with some of the other people listening to the show. You'll also see a tab that says donate. Click on that tab, and you'll see that the Angel Clark Show accepts both PayPal and Bitcoin. Every donation helps. We return to a story from The Guardian, where a judge has just rejected the White House's plea to keep the Guantanamo Bay force-feeding hearings a secret. Now, of course, the government wants to keep all of this a secret. Doesn't look very good when they have to, well, they don't have to, when they are choosing to put tubes up people's noses to keep them alive before charging them with even a crime. But that's the reality. Judge Gladys Kessler dismissed the government's argument that an open hearing would jeopardize national security. Federal Judge Gladys Kessler has rejected the U.S. government's plea to prevent the public from attending the first legal challenge to its practice of forcibly feeding detainees on hunger strike at Guantanamo Bay, describing it as extraordinary and deeply troubling. Judge Gladys Kessler of the Washington, D.C. District Court noted that the Justice Department's request came late, just days before opening statements are to be delivered in the case of Abu Waib Diab. With such a long-standing, this is a quote, with such a long-standing and ongoing public interest at stake, it would be particularly egregious to bar the public from observing the credibility of live witnesses, the substance of their testimony, whether proper procedures are being followed, and whether the court is treating all participants fairly, Kessler wrote in a ruling on Thursday. In an occasionally mocking tone, Kessler dismissed the government's argument that an open hearing would jeopardize national security by risking the disclosure of classified information. Any witnesses or written testimony could be crafted to reserve any such discussion for a closed session, she found, and much of the evidence to be submitted is already public. Diab, a Syrian who's been cleared for release from Guantanamo Bay since 2009, is challenging the U.S. military's practice of feeding detainees on hunger strike through tubes inserted into the stomach through their nose. He and other detainees consider the feeding to be torture and request an end both to it and to Guantanamo guards forcibly removing them from their cells for the treatment. Diab and an undisclosed cohort of detainees are on hunger strike to protest against their incarceration without charge. When the government requested last week that the public be shut out of the trial, beyond the opening statements scheduled for Monday, lawyers for Diab warned of a cover-up. The public has had minimal, independently confirmed glimpses inside a force-feeding practice that Kessler last year called painful, humiliating, and degrading. Among the key pieces of evidence in the trial are videotapes of the forced feedings and the extractions that Kessler has ordered the government to produce. But those videotapes, Kessler has agreed, are not to be shown to the public, meaning that the most graphic depictions of the force feedings will remain hidden from view. The Guardian is among several media organizations that filed suit for the disclosure of the videotapes and that also submitted a brief to Kessler's arguing for an open hearing. Kessler referred to the good deal of publicity in the press that Diab's challenge has garnered. With the international controversy generated by the force feeding ever present in Diab's case, joined by broader critiques of justice at Guantanamo Bay after 12 years, Kessler quoted a Supreme Court ruling archly noting that the trials were contests of credibility. Quote, "The value of openness lies in the fact that people not actually attending the trials and other proceedings can have confidence that standards of fairness are being observed. The sure knowledge that anyone is free to attend gives assurance that established procedures are being followed and that deviations will become known. Openness thus enhances both the fairness of the trial and the appearance of fairness, so essential to public confidence in the system. That was a quote from the Supreme Court in 1984. Kessler said she found the court's words enduringly wise and relevant. The government, she wrote, seems to have forgotten that wisdom. Forgotten or ignored. An undisclosed number of detainees remain on hunger strike at Guantanamo. In 2013, after nearly the entire detainee population joined the hunger strikes, the military quelled the ensuing international outrage by refusing to disclose basic information about the persistence of the strikes. It has struck the phrase hunger strike from its lexicon, preferring instead the term long-term non-religious fasting. Yeah. Language is important. And when the government is petitioning the court to keep these trials secret, it shows that they've got something to hide. Oh, they'll claim it's national security. There could be another September 11th if you watch us force feed detainees. Really? Because it seems to me the only thing these tapes will reveal is who the real terrorists are. Those who blindly follow orders to torture other human beings, and those who give the orders. But what is terrorism? Except using violence and fear to control the population for political gain. Look up the definition of terrorism in the dictionary and see if any modern government doesn't fit that definition. Especially a government like the United States, which is known to be torturing people. Yeah, they have good reason to keep this a secret, but we here at the Angel Clark Show and at Peace News will be following this trial as it continues.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring signs into the rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually.
Whoa, hey,
Who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video or audio allowed in this.
No, I have work today. This is you ain't gonna make it. Now, wait a minute.
Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable!
Why are you running from me? Because you're scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. On LRN.FM, we talk a lot about alternative currencies. Did you know that now you can buy gold, silver, and other precious metals with Bitcoins? LRN.FM has partnered with Amaji Metals to bring you great prices on beautiful .999 fine silver, as well as gold, platinum, and other metals. Check out their selection and pay with Bitcoins or Federal Reserve notes at metal.lrn.fm. That's metal.lrn.fm. Keenvention is coming up October 31st through November 2nd. Get your tickets now at keenvention.info. Keenvention is your chance to meet dozens of key liberty activists from across the Shire. You can explore the beautiful little city of Keene, discuss various forms of activism with seasoned veterans, attend social events like the Costume Party. Keenvention received rave reviews last year. If you missed it, visit keenvention.info for full video coverage of every speaker and panel. This year, James Robin Hood Cleveland, Rich Paul, and Free State Project President Carla Garrick will be keynoting. and we'll have all kinds of panels, including the new Cop Block panel and the new Movers panel, hosted by the outlaw Josie Wales. Join old and new friends and neighbors in Keene for Keenvention this October 31st through November 2nd. Only 100 tickets are available in advance, so lock yours in now for just $60 or with Bitcoin. Reserve your tickets now at keenvention.info. Visit keenvention.info for more, or look for our page and event on Facebook. That's keenvention.info.
The 3 most important things you can do for LRN.FM are: 1. Let your friends know you're listening to LRN.FM on your social networking profile. 2. Buy the things you buy online through shop.lrn.fm. 3. Give $5 a month to the AMP program at amp.lrn.fm. You likely buy all kinds of things online. Amazon is the largest online retailer. You can get what you need at the same great prices, and LRN gets a cut. Please do your online shopping at shop.lrn.fm.
Because we are smothering in spam, please do not reply to all when you can instead reply. I was recently among over 100 invited to a corporate reunion. It's always a warm affair, and that's the problem. Enthusiasm for our upcoming get-together caused many recipients to RSVP the organizer with a cheery reply to all. I can't wait. Then others piled on with a reply to all to that. Then the "I'm out of my office now" autoresponders joined in. So I replied to all, asking that we all reply only to the organizer. Hey, at least I tried. One invitee, apparently retired, shot back, "Point taken, but I really like seeing the responses since they're so positive." Smiley face. This better be an open bar. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
If you enjoy LRN.FM, please contribute to your favorite shows via their websites and become an amplifier at amp.lrn.fm. That's amp.lrn.fm.
There's probably at least more because you're listening to Derek J on the Angel Clark Show. Hello? I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller.
Hello, and welcome back to the Angel Clark Show, the final Friday episode of the Angel Clark Show. It's so good to be with you. I'm Derek J. You can learn about me at my website, derekj.me. I also produced a movie back in 2012 you might find to be enjoyable if you're the voluntarist, anarchist, civil disobedience type. Go check it out. Victimlesscrimespree.com. It's all free online. I even cut 2 different versions, so if you want a full feature-length version, you can check it out, or if you're an ADD person like me, you might enjoy the 60-minute version. So go and check it out. It's all free, victimlesscrimespree.com. Share it with your friends, make DVDs, sell them. I don't care. Now let's move along to the next story. We were just talking about a judge's rejection of a White House plea to keep Guantanamo Bay force-feeding hearings secret, but that's not going to happen, thank goodness. There's still some transparency in the U.S. Now let's turn to charter school advocates who are rallying in New York City. In the latest show of its political and organizational muscle, New York's school choice movement held a rally in Lower Manhattan this morning to draw attention to a recent report by the nonprofit Families for Excellent Schools, which found that 1 out of 4 traditional public schools in New York City are failing. 90% of students in these failing schools score below grade level in both reading and math, the report found. There were about 21,000 protesters, according to the organizers, made up primarily of charter school kids, parents, and teachers. They held signs demanding "Great schools now!" and wore red shirts bearing the rally's slogan, "Don't steal possible." A handful of lawmakers were on hand to show their support, including Senate co-majority leader Jeff Kline, Assemblyman Marcus Crespo, and Assemblyman Robert Rodriguez. Annalie Lopez, a 26-year-old single mother whose daughter, Renee, fled a traditional public school to attend Success Academy, the city's largest charter network, was among the protesters. Lopez was profiled at Reason.com back in April. Nearly 2 counter-protesters from Nearby, two counter-protesters from New York Communities for Change, a nonprofit affiliated with the United Federation of Teachers, held a banner that said, "Reveal your donors! Wall Street, Walmart." Elzora Cleveland, apparent leader with the group, released a prepared statement calling for an end to the, quote, pretense. Quote, "It's the same super rich hedge fund donors who are against Mayor de Blasio's progressive agenda and are pushing a right-wing agenda in Albany," said Cleveland, a characterization that seemed at odds with the bulging crowd of students and parents. "They're all for handling more and more unaccountable dollars to charter schools only because they stand to make a profit." The rally is the latest in a series of protests by charter supporters. A year ago, advocates led a pro-charter march across the Brooklyn Bridge, followed by a rally in Albany on March 4th that led to the passage of a new state law, which made it easier to open and operate new charters in New York. In a shift in focus, today's event was geared towards bringing more attention to the shortcomings of traditional public schools. In a recent, soon-to-be-released interview, Eva Moskowitz, the founder and CEO of Success Academy and the most prominent figure in New York's charter movement, told Reason's Nick Gillespie, quote, "I feel personally that I have not done enough to shine light on why traditional schools haven't worked and the stakes for our kids." This week, Moskowitz announced that Success Academy's charter network, which includes some of the highest scoring schools in the state, will hold a free professional development workshop for traditional public schools principals. I covered the rally in Albany last month for Reason TV and looked at the roots of the ongoing political feud between Eva Moskowitz and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. Now, that was not me, Derek J. That was written by Jim Epstein, who wrote the article at the Reason.com blog. But there is a video at Reason.com, so you can learn more about this. There's no video of the march itself. There are some pictures of the crowds, the people in red shirts. It's worth reporting when there are 21,000 protesters gathered to support choice. And they seem pretty organized, too. I mean, just having the same color shirt on helps to show how many people are united in this effort. Shows that you're on the same page, at least about one thing. Incredible. More choice, more freedom. It's going to be a long road to true human freedom. But this is one major step in the right direction when just 30 years ago, it was illegal to homeschool in America. Today, people are seeing public schools are too big a failure to allow to exist as the only option. People are demanding choices, and that's what they're getting. Now, another thing to be careful of as we march towards human freedom is distinguishing truth versus lies, as politicians and mainstream media spread all sorts of information about new wars against the Islamic State, new boogeymen, the Khorasan group, what's going on in Syria, Libya, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan. Who is the U.S. bombing now and why? We turn to antiwar.com to help us see through the fog. This article by Reese Erlich is titled 10 Myths About Obama's Latest War in Iraq and Syria. Veteran foreign correspondent Reese Erlich was in northern Iraq at the start of the U.S. bombing campaign against the Islamic State. He interviewed Kurdish leaders, Peshmerga fighters, and U.S. officials. He says the reality on the ground is far different from the propaganda coming out of Washington. 1. Islamic State presents an immediate threat to the people of the U.S. That's myth number one. In justifying air attacks on Syria on September 23rd, President Barack Obama said, quote, "We will not tolerate safe havens for terrorists who threaten our people." I saw firsthand, Reese writes, I saw firsthand the tens of thousands of Yazidis forced to flee Islamic State fighters. The Islamic State is a vicious, un-Islamic, ultra-right-wing group that poses a real threat to the people of Syria and Iraq. But those people will defeat the Islamic State, not the U.S., whose motives are widely questioned in the region. The Islamic State poses no more of a terrorist threat to the American people than Al-Qaeda and its offshoots. In fact, within a matter of weeks, the Obama administration admitted that the Islamic State posed little terrorist threat to the United States mainland and focused instead on a heretofore unknown group that the U.S. calls Khorasan. Now, evidence is emerging that the Khorasan group, well, that threat was exaggerated in order to justify expanding the bombing to Syria. We've seen this play before. Be aware of these 10 myths about Obama's latest war in Iraq and Syria. We'll come back with 2 through 9 when the Angel Clark Show returns from this trip to the free market.
It started in 1913, and it's become a monster. We're on to you. SecretsOfTheFed.com. Discover what's really going on with over 100 daily updates and hourly trending news articles, podcasts, forums, and the newest memes. It's your premier liberty-oriented destination. Don't waste hours sorting through disinformation on the web. SecretsOfTheFed.com.
The Diary of Henry Myers tells the story of the collapse of a tyrannical dystopian empire, Nemsoko, from the point of view of a reluctant hero, Henry Myers. The book is written in diary form at the fall of the tyrannical empire, with flashbacks to before the war that led to the collapse, and has been described as an interesting tale about our world as it is today that the reader almost forgets things aren't quite this bad yet. The Diary of Henry Myers is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
When I found the Free State Project, I knew it was the key to achieving liberty in my lifetime. It's awesome to be surrounded by like-minded, freedom-loving activists who've moved here to New Hampshire. From politics to civil disobedience, we have it all. Where I came from, it felt that no matter what I did, liberty was dying. Perhaps you feel the same way? Call 888-377-2515 now to learn more about the Free State Project. That's 888-377-2515 or visit freestateproject.org.
Did you know you can get news updates about what's happening with the Liberty Radio Network delivered in the way you prefer? You can sign up for our email updates at updates.lrn.fm. Plus, you can stay in the loop by joining our Facebook profile at facebook.lrn.fm or follow us at Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm. It's all free. So sign up now at updates.lrn.fm for news updates delivered to your email box, facebook.lrn.fm to follow our Facebook page, and twitter.lrn.fm to receive our tweets.
This Your Family Today tip is brought to you by Lil Drums. Every bit as fun as a full-size Nestle drumstick cone and definitely cuter. Visit us at drumstick.com. Vacations are all about family time, but you don't have to leave home to have fun. Take 1 weekend a month and devote it to family activities. Pull out the board games and puzzles, serve up some treats, or have a picnic. Even without leaving home, you'll feel like you've really had some time away. For more tips like these, visit us at parenthood.com/yourfamilytoday.
Imagine someone in your community getting in their car, turning on the radio, and hearing the Liberty Radio Network. You can make that vision a reality with your own micro radio station. Visit broadcast.lrn.fm to learn how you can put our programs on the air in your area. You can have LRN.FM running around the clock, and you can even add in your own local shows. Building a radio station is simple, but programming isn't. That's where LRN.FM comes in. Learn more at broadcast.lrn.fm. That's broadcast.lrn.fm. Free Talk Live.
When you call a government bureaucracy, more often than not, the person who you talk to will not know the answer to your question, but they'll tell you they think they know who the person is that has the answer, and they will pass the buck to that other person, and if they happen to pick up the phone, they'll usually pass on the buck, or you'll leave a voicemail and never hear back from anybody.
Right. I mean, I wasn't being rude to PSA at all. The third person I talked to, she was getting pretty hot on the collar. It's like, what are you being so angry for? I'm just asking regular questions any person would.
Well, she's probably upset that she had to pick up her phone and talk to one of the little peons like you.
She's probably annoyed at her underlings who actually gave you her phone number and let you get through to her.
Yeah, that's probably the case. She just wants to play solitaire, and you interrupted her game, or she just wants to surf on the internet, and you just ruined her day.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM. You can watch the LRN studio cam and chat with other listeners anytime at cam.lrn.fm. That's cam.lrn.fm.
There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek Shea on the Angel Clark Show.
Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show. We return to 10 myths about the Obama's latest war in Iraq and Syria. This article by Reese Ehrlich at antiwar.com. It's important to unpack the propaganda. What's really going on behind the media empires at CBS, ABC, and NBC, and of course, the White House. Myth number 1. The Islamic State presents an immediate threat to the people of the United States. No, they don't. And remember, this isn't just some random guy. Well, it is some random guy, but it's Reese Ehrlich, and he was in northern Iraq at the start of the U.S. bombing campaign against the Islamic State. He's a veteran foreign correspondent, and he interviewed Kurdish leaders, Peshmerga fighters, and U.S. officials. He says the reality on the ground is far different from the propaganda coming out of the District of Criminals. Myth number 2. The U.S. isn't waging war, but a counterterrorism operation. Both the Bush and Obama administrations have managed to redefine war to mean only those conflicts in which Americans die, and the fighting costs over $10 billion. But from inside northern Iraq, what I saw sure looked like war. U.S. bombs have already killed civilians, particularly in Syria, where the U.S. has limited or no on-the-ground intelligence. Once again, the U.S. is waging an open-ended war with no concern for the long-term well-being of the people in that region. Myth number 3. The U.S. has no boots on the ground. Turns out, that's a lie. The United States already has combat troops in Iraq. A U.S. diplomat acknowledged to me that American spotters in the Kurdish region of Iraq provide coordinates for airstrikes. He said U.S. advisors are armed and would shoot if attacked. If insurgents down an American plane, armed U.S. helicopter teams would go into enemy territory to rescue pilots. By redefining combat troops the U.S. not only wages war in the Middle East, but also on the English language. And who was it that said the first casualty of war is language? From Animal Farm, George Orwell. Just 1 week into the bombing campaign, Joint Chiefs Chairman Martin Dempsey said the U.S. might have to introduce ground combat troops into Iraq. The White House quickly disavowed the statement, but leading Dems and Republican hawks are already pressuring Obama to formally introduce combat troops. As the air war proves incapable of destroying the Islamic State, the administration will likely introduce more ground troops, perhaps renaming them Limited Temporary Counterinsurgency Advisors. The U.S. has no boots on the ground? Yeah, right. Number 4. Myth number 4. The U.S. has formed a viable coalition to defeat the Islamic State. Not true. President Obama boasted of the formation of a broad coalition that includes Saudi Arabia, the Gulf countries, Jordan, Britain, Australia, France, and Belgium. Israel remains a silent partner. But the U.S. remains the main military power and directs the airstrikes. Somebody will have to fight the Islamic State on the ground, and the coalition allies certainly won't. In Iraq, the newly formed government of Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi has little support from the Sunnis and Kurds, two vital components of any future viable regime. Abadi's cabinet actually has fewer Sunni ministers than the previous discredited government of Nouri al-Maliki. The American alliance with Israel and Sunni-led countries such as Saudi Arabia only angers the Iraqi government, which remains closely allied with Iran. This coalition, like the phony Coalition of the Willing in 2003, is doomed from the start. The U.S. will fund and fight this war until organized opposition stops it or the public becomes exhausted. The Obama administration has apparently forgotten that unrestrained military spendings in the 2000s helped precipitate the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Viable coalition to defeat the Islamic State? That's just propaganda. Propaganda point number 5. The U.S. can fight the Islamic State and other extremists without simultaneously helping Bashar Assad, Iran, and Hezbollah. Nope. 1 year ago, the Obama administration was beating the war drums against Syrian President Bashar Assad, alleging use of chemical weapons. Now, the U.S. is bombing insurgents opposed to Assad. At the moment, the Syrian civil war is a zero-sum game. Wakening Assad's enemies strengthens Assad's regime. Assad and his allies, Iran and the Lebanese Hezbollah, are pleased with U.S. attacks on the Islamic State. But if ultra-right-wing rebels are weakened, pro-U.S. rebels won't fill in the gap. How long will it take for the U.S. to start bombing Syrian army targets? Propaganda number 6. The U.S. supports only moderate rebels. Have you ever heard of such a thing? A moderate rebel? Because President Obama wants you to believe that these exist. Contrary to conservative criticism, the Obama administration has tried to create pro-U.S. civilian and armed groups. Obama's failed not because of lack of leadership, but because Syrians won't accept U.S. policy. In my interviews inside Syria and neighboring countries, Syrian rebels and opposition activists made clear they opposed the U.S. wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and Washington's total support for Israel. Every Syrian I ever met wants Israel to return the Golan Heights seized in 1967, for example, but the U.S. isn't interested in having that discussion. Meanwhile, American allies such as Saudi Arabia have armed extremists such as the Al-Nusra Front, a group affiliated with Al-Qaeda. Saudi Arabia's ultra-right-wing interpretation of Islam shares many ideological similarities with al-Nusra and the Islamic State. Yet, the U.S. plans to have Saudi Arabia train moderate Syrian rebels, which is like asking Al Capone to train Chicago police cadets. The U.S. supports only moderate rebels. Don't believe the lies. Lie number 7. The U.S. fights to defend human rights and the rule of law, not oil. We've been hearing this one for decades. It's not about oil. Yes, it is. And if it's not about oil, it's about other natural resources. It's about land. It's about control. It's not about justice or the rule of law. It's how much my gang can take from the other gang. This is the Angel Clark Show.
Are you getting squeezed by the economic downturn? Hey, you were doing fine. Then all of a sudden you're having a tough time paying your family's credit card bills. Maybe you were downsized or even lost a job, but you still owe 10 grand or more in credit card bills. And you just can't afford the minimum payments anymore. We're here to help. We are the Genesis Debt Partners. We know the secrets to negotiate better terms with your creditors. Make a free 10-minute call right now and learn how we can help you get out of debt. 800-981-7590. If you owe 10 grand or more in credit card debt and you want to learn how you can pay less and get out of debt faster, call right now. 800-981-7590. 800-981-7590. Get out of debt now. 800-981-7590.
The 3 most important things you can do for LRN.FM are: 1. Let your friends know you're listening to LRN.FM on your social networking profile. 2. Buy the things you buy online through shop.lrn.fm. 3. Give $5 a month to the AMP program at amp.lrn.fm. It's my firm belief that the AMP program is the best use of your charitable dollar among liberty-oriented groups. Support all your favorite organizations, but make sure you give $5 a month to the AMP program at amp.lrn.fm.
Are you a political activist who does things that the government might not like? Then this free ebook may save your life. Rats is your guide to protecting yourself against snitches, informers, informants, agents provocateur, narcs, finks, and similar vermin. Rats was written by OG libertarian Claire Wolfe. Rats is a short book, easy to read, and available free in many formats. Download Rats free at rats-nosnitch.com. That's rats-nosnitch.com.
More of the Angel Clark Show is coming up next, live after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM.
This is the Liberty Beat, your daily source for liberty news and activist updates. Online at thelibertybeat.com. I'm Brian Hagan with your Liberty Beat for Thursday, October 2nd, 2014. Gold opened today at $1,213. Silver opened at $17.08. And Bitcoin is trading at $379.82. Today's Bitcoin price brought to you by ExpressCoin, the fastest and most reliable way to buy Bitcoin. Buy Bitcoin today at expresscoin.com. Support for Liberty Beat comes from sovereignminers.com. Interested in mining Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies? Well, Sovereign Miners has you covered. All purchases come with a free script ISIC miner. Visit sovereignminers.com to buy your miner today. In the news, a Dallas emergency room sent a man with Ebola home last week, even though he told a nurse that he had been in disease-ravaged West Africa. And officials at the hospital are considering if they would have acted differently had the entire medical staff been aware. The patient, identified by the Associated Press as Thomas Eric Duncan of Liberia, arrived in the United States on September 20th to visit family. Dallas County Health and Human Services Director Zachary Thompson said county officials suspect that 12 to 18 people may have had contact with Duncan. It was also revealed by Dallas School District Superintendent Mike Miles that 5 students at 4 schools had come into contact with Duncan. The St. Louis County Prosecutor's Office has begun an investigation into claims of misconduct on the grand jury assigned to the case of Ferguson officer Darren Wilson. The Washington Post reports that the prosecutor's office received information from a Twitter user alleging that one of the jurors may have discussed the case with a friend. A supposed friend of one of the jurors tweeted that there was not enough evidence to warrant an arrest of Wilson. If there has been a violation of confidentiality, a new grand jury would need to be formed. A decision from the grand jury had been expected by mid to late October. U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger contingency plans drawn up nearly 40 years ago to attack Cuba, incensed over the small island's deployment of troops to Angola, according to declassified government documents posted online Wednesday. In several White House meetings, Kissinger advocated for strong action to stop Castro, fearful that his incursion in Africa was making the U.S. look weak. Support for Liberty Beat comes from Midas Resources, helping clients convert their paper 401ks and IRAs to solid gold and silver. Get their 10 Reasons book free by calling 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237. Did you know you can support the Liberty Beat when shopping on Amazon.com? Just simply log into your account after clicking our Amazon affiliate link at libertybeat.com, Amazon. You can help the Liberty Beat continue to deliver hard-hitting Liberty news and activist updates by doing your Amazon shopping after following our link at thelibertybeat.com. This is the Liberty Beat for Thursday, October 2nd, 2014. Check out the website at thelibertybeat.com and like us on Facebook at facebook.com, The Liberty Beat. The U.S. government hopes to keep an upcoming hearing on forced feedings in Guantanamo Bay private. The hearing deals with a 43-year-old Syrian citizen who has been on hunger strike for 18 months. He's asking a federal court to stop the forced feedings that began as a response to the widespread hunger strikes that began at the prison in the summer of 2013. The Department of Justice believes the hearing should be done in private because the case involves classified, protected, and unclassified information, including procedures used to transport detainees. 16 different organizations have called on the court to release videotapes of the forced feedings. The American Medical Association stated that forced feedings violates core ethical values of the medical profession. Beginning Monday, the Harris County, Texas Sheriff's Office and Houston Police Department will not prosecute Houstonians found with less than 2 ounces of cannabis. For the next 6 months, the law enforcement agencies will not charge first-time nonviolent offenders with less than 2 ounces in their possession, as long as they agree to perform 8 hours of community service or take an 8-hour class. The move is part of a 6-month pilot program being carried out by the District Attorney's Office. DA Devin Anderson said the agencies wanted to focus their resources on citizens who are committing rapes, robberies, assaults, and murders. Support for Liberty Beat comes from My Magic Mud, all natural teeth whitener. Go to mymagicmud.com to hear a short interview with Dr. Griffin Cole. That's mymagicmud.com. And support comes from the Conscious Resistance Network. Videos, news reports, and articles from a spiritual anarchist perspective. Experience the Conscious Resistance at theconsciousresistance.com. This is the Liberty Beat for Thursday, October 2nd, 2014. I'm Brian Hagan, reporting. Reminding you, spread liberty with a...
Sources within the Vatican confirmed Tuesday that Pope Benedict XVI has dispatched an elite team of 6 bishops to sabotage leading contraceptive manufacturer Pfizer. Codenamed Conclave 6, the highly trained team of bishops will reportedly infiltrate the heavily guarded compound, detonate extremely powerful charges at key points within the factory, and then escape to a nearby safe house.
The Catholic Church can trust only the best with defending God's plan. Conclave 6 is the deadliest team of bishops I've ever laid eyes on.
The Pope denied rumors that a B team of needle-wielding priests had been deployed to a latex factory in New Jersey to poke tiny holes into thousands of Durex condoms. Locally, the best part of a gay 12-year-old's day is the half hour he spends eating lunch alone in a stairwell. Calling it his only respite from constant ridicule and mockery, 7th grader Ben McElroy says life doesn't get better than the moments he spends quietly laying out his lunch on a secluded staircase while the rest of his classmates are in the cafeteria.
This is the Onion News Network.
There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek Shea on the Angel Clark Show. Hello? I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a
Hello. Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show. It's so good to be with you. We're broadcasting live this Friday, October 3rd, 2014, from Keene in the Shire. It's 6 p.m. here at the bottom of the second hour of the show. You know, you can visit Keene, the lovely city of about 22,000 people. It's a small city. I'd like to help it lose that designation, no longer be a legally defined city, but a town, because cities have fewer rights, fewer freedoms. But you can visit Keene this month in just 4 short weeks, a little less than that time. There will be a Keene-vention, a convention that happens in Keene. It's a hotel convention. People stay at the Best Western Sovereign Hotel for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, October 31st, November 1st, and November 2nd. It's going to be a great time. There's going to be panels, speakers. You can meet activists all across the Shire who are doing hardcore activism, spreading liberty across the state, and enhancing freedom in our own personal lives so that we can all benefit from that. Plus, I'm throwing a dance party as a fundraiser for Andrew Jones, the alleged admin of the Silk Road website, who's facing life in prison. He needs your help for a legal defense so that he can see the free light of day again. Learn more at keenvention.info. Let's return to this story from antiwar.com, where Reese Ehrlich writes about 10 myths that the Obama administration is pushing out to dupe you into supporting their war in Iraq and Syria. But you're not going to buy it. You're too smart for this. We can recap myths 1 through 6 here. Number 1, the Islamic State presents an immediate threat to the people of the United States. Wrong. Number 2, the U.S. is not waging war, but a counter-terrorism operation. Your word games don't work with us, Mr. Obama. Number 3, the U.S. has no boots on the ground. Well, it doesn't matter if they're wearing boots or ballet shoes. Those combat troops are there. Number 4, the U.S. has formed a viable coalition to defeat the Islamic State. Trying to make it look like it's not just you going into war, Mr. Obama? We know better. Sure, other countries will sign their name to the list, but who's doing the fighting? Who's directing the airstrikes? You. The American military. Myth number 5, the U.S. can fight the Islamic State and other extremists without simultaneously helping Bashar Assad, Iran, and Hezbollah. Nope. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So when you're helping to fight ISIS, you're helping Bashar Assad. Sure. They're both bad. So the answer is to not get involved, not pick a side. Weakening Assad's enemies strengthens Assad's regime. So stay out of it. It's the practical and moral thing to do. Line number 6. The U.S. supports only moderate rebels. Yeah. Is there such a thing as a moderate rebel? The type of moderate rebel who overthrows a government? Yeah, that doesn't sound moderate to me. Now we come upon myth number 7. The U.S. fights to defend human rights and the rule of law. Syria and Iraq have faced massive humanitarian crises for the past 3 years. Yet, the U.S. directly intervened militarily only when the oil-rich Kurdish region of Iraq was threatened. Kurdistan contains the world's 9th largest reserves of oil and could eventually replace Russia as a major supplier of oil and gas to Europe. Over 50 foreign oil companies now have offices in Kurdistan. Many cutting highly profitable oil production deals with Kurdish officials. Some oil company executives unabashedly call for more military support for an independent Kurdistan. Oil is only one factor, however. The U.S. also wants friendly governments in Baghdad and Damascus. A few more military bases in the region wouldn't hurt either. Whatever combination of economic and geopolitical motivations there may be for the latest war, respect for human rights is not among them. Myth number 8. President Obama has the legal authority to bomb both Iraq and Syria. No, he doesn't. The Obama administration claims authority to wage the current war based on the 2001 congressional vote authorizing action against al-Qaeda for its 9/11 attack. Of course, the Islamic State is not part of al-Qaeda, and the 2001 era al-Qaeda led by Osama bin Laden no longer exists, proving once again that those in power can get their attorneys to find a legal justification for anything. United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon called for a UN vote. Some libertarian Republicans and progressive Democrats called for a congressional vote under the War Powers Act. Congressional leaders ducked the issue, hoping to avoid debate before the midterm elections. Obama, like Bush before him, believes that the president can wage war at any time and will tolerate a congressional vote only if he wins. There's no legal authority to bomb these countries. No declaration of war has been declared. These military actions are unjustified and illegal. Myth number 9. The Kurdish leaders are staunch allies against the Islamic State. Not so. In June, the Kurdish Peshmerga didn't fight the Islamic State when it seized Mosul and other Sunni areas of Iraq. In fact, leaders of the ruling Kurdish Democratic Party met secretly with Sunni tribal leaders allied with the Islamic State to work out a non-aggression agreement. Because of the collapse of the Iraqi army that month, Kurdish leaders expanded their territory by 40%. The Peshmerga took control of oil-rich Kirkuk, an area that long disputed between Kurds and Arabs. The Kurdish leaders of the Kurdish Democratic Party told the author of this article, Reese Ehrlich, that they have no intention of returning it to the central government control. They're preparing referenda on independence in the newly expanded areas. Only in August, when the Islamic State attacked Kurdish-controlled areas and threatened Erbil, did Peshmerga fight the Islamic State. No, Kurdish leaders are not allies against the Islamic State. They have their own political interests at stake here. There's lots of players on this chessboard. And this game of Risk isn't over.
A great new book is hard to find, with today's authors glorifying the state. I have an alternative, and his name is Taryn Lupo at lupolit.com. Taryn has written over 20 Liberty-themed short stories, manuals, and books, ranging from nonfiction, humor, horror, and romance to young adult and children's fiction. Read the words that reflect your views. Read Taryn Lupo at lupolit.com. A traveler? Well, check out Taryn's free audiobooks, perfect for your lifestyle. Stop supporting authors that support the state. Instead, support lupolit.com.
Energy, vitality, clarity of mind, and incredible immune support. The awesome power of nature is now in your hands. Hi, this is Sean from One with Nature. Our herbal formulas contain some of the greatest botanicals from around the world, and they are ready and willing to help you achieve your goals. Visit us at onewithnature.com. That's WON withnature.com.
Free Press Publications is an independent, alternative media and publishing company founded in June 2009 with the mission of ensuring a free press for the freedom movement and is committed to spreading the message of peace, freedom, love, and liberty. FPP also gives new authors an avenue for publishing freedom-oriented material. FPP brings you daily news and commentary on the website, fpp.cc, as well as a daily 5-minute newscast, FPP Radio News, and weekly news, views, and commentary in the FPP Freedom Minute and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio at fppradio.com, and the monthly newspaper, FPP News, at news.fpp.cc. Find FPP online at fpp.cc. That's fpp.cc, as in Creative Commons.
If you want to move to the free state and you're looking for some real estate, well, I know a guy who's really great. It's the realtor Mark Warden. Do you want a home with 20 acres, a lakeside cabin? Any takers for renters, buyers, and sellers too? Mark Warden is the guy for you. PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you can't listen to the Liberty Radio Network's internet streams, free satellite channel, or radio affiliates, no worries. You can listen to LRN.FM from any phone, anywhere. Add this number to your phone. 213-493-0309. It's a long-distance call, so make sure you're familiar with your phone's calling plan. The Liberty Radio Network listen lines are locked into our stream 24 hours a day. Call 213-493-0309. That's 213-493-0309. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. Find out about giving to our Google AdWords campaign at amp.freetalklive.com. That's amp.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the best liberty-oriented audio streamed around the clock, on the air, and online. This is the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek Shea on the Angel Clark Show.
Welcome back. This is the Angel Clark Show. We return to 10 myths that the government's trying to spoon feed you about the new wars in Iraq and Syria. But you're not going to buy them. You're too good for that. Plus, we're breaking them down at antiwar.com. This article by Reese Ehrlich is incredible, well documented, and he knows what he's talking about. He's a veteran foreign correspondent who was in northern Iraq at the start of the U.S. bombing campaign against the Islamic State. He interviewed Kurdish leaders, Peshmerga fighters, and U.S. officials, and he says the reality on the ground is different from the propaganda coming from the criminals in Washington. Just to summarize, it's been a lengthy article, but I think well worth delving into. Number one, the Islamic State presents an immediate threat to the people of the United States. Not true. Myth number two, the U.S. isn't waging war, but a counter-terrorism operation. Now, when recapping this, I should mention that in the first hour, I incorrectly attributed the quote, "The first casualty of war is truth," to George Orwell. It was in fact spoken years earlier, and the quote is actually not, as I said it was, the first casualty of war is language. The quote is actually the first casualty of war is truth. And just a little background on that before we get back into the article, because it's worth correcting. In 1918, U.S. Senator Hiram Warren Johnson is purported to have said, "The first casualty when war comes is truth." However, it wasn't recorded, and later in 1929, Arthur Ponsonby wrote, "When war is declared, truth is the first casualty." That from Falsehood in Wartime. And you can learn more from the Idler, which was written, let's see, Samuel Johnson seems to have had the first word. He says, "Among the calamities of war may be jointly numbered the diminution of the love of truth by the falsehoods which interest dictates and credulity encourages." So it looks like this is an old saying. It might have even had its origins in the Roman times, for all we know. It's an old expression. It's a truism. First casualty of war is truth. Because no one's going to willingly invade another country, cause harm, wreak havoc on their brothers and sisters of humanity without first having been lied to about the dangers or threats that those friends and neighbors across the world present. We have a lot more in common than we have to divide us. And politicians' lies can fool well-meaning people into supporting gruesome, bloody, unjust, and invasive wars. But we're not going to let that happen. We're speaking truth to power every day. So when your friends say, the U.S. isn't waging war, it's a counterterrorism operation, you can tell them that whether they're supporting a open-ended war with no concern for the long-term well-being of the people in the region, or whether it's a single airstrike using the weapons of war to kill innocent people, spending Department of Defense money to drop bombs on schools, hospitals, whatever targets may be deemed necessary, that's a war. I don't think anyone even believes that crap anymore. After Vietnam was repeatedly called not a war, it's a military operation. Anyone with more than 2 brain cells to rub together knows better than that. Line number 3. The U.S. has no boots on the ground. Number 4. The U.S. has formed a viable coalition to defeat the Islamic State. Nuh-uh. Number 5, the U.S. can fight the Islamic State and other extremists without simultaneously helping Bashar Assad, Iran, and Hezbollah. Wrong again. This chessboard is more complicated than just 2 players. You support one, you're helping others gain an advantage. Number 6, the U.S. supports only moderate rebels. Oh yeah, those moderate rebels who overthrow governments, right? Number 7, the U.S. fights to defend human rights and the rule of law, not oil. Actually, it's really about oil. But it's only one factor. The U.S. also wants friendly governments in Baghdad and Damascus and a few military bases in the region, so it's not just oil. Number 8. President Obama has the legal authority to bomb both Iraq and Syria. No. It's required that the president seek the approval of Congress before attacking another country. He's not doing that, and even some members of Congress were saying, hey, we should have a vote, and then the majority leaders were like, no, actually shut up. Lie number 9. The Kurdish leaders are staunch allies against the Islamic State. No, they're not. They only fought the Islamic State when their territory became threatened. They're looking out for their own self-interest, as is the United States and everyone else involved. Kurdish Democratic Party leaders are fighting the Islamic State as a tactical step toward establishing an independent Kurdistan. If the Islamic State stops threatening Kurdistan, the Kurds will have no interest in fighting the Islamic State inside Arab parts of Iraq. And European powers are providing new arms to the Peshmerga. Today, they're aimed at the Islamic State. Tomorrow, the Iraqi army. Lie number 10. The U.S. never negotiates ransoms with terrorists, unlike those slippery French. American leaders claim the U.S. never pays ransoms for kidnapped citizens, whereas some other countries do. One U.S. military leader even speculated that fewer Americans would be kidnapped because of that policy. It's another myth. The U.S. negotiated with the Taliban, possibly using third parties, to free one of the American prisoners of war in Afghanistan in exchange for 5 Guantanamo prisoners. 2 of the American hikers held in Iran were released after the Sultan of Oman, at U.S. urging, paid Iran what was euphemistically called bail. And there was a freelance reporting from the Middle East for 28 years. He's just another example. This is the Angel Clark Show.
Keenvention is coming up October 31st through November 2nd. Get your tickets now at keenvention.info. Keenvention is your chance to meet dozens of key liberty activists from across the Shire. You can explore the beautiful little city of Keene, discuss various forms of activism with seasoned veterans, attend social events like the costume party. Keenvention received rave reviews last year. If you missed it, visit keenvention.info for full video coverage of every speaker and panel. This year, James Robin Hood Cleveland, Rich Paul, and Free State Project President Carla Garrick will be keynoting. And we'll have all kinds of panels, including the new Cop Block panel and the new Movers panel hosted by the outlaw Josie Wales. Join old and new friends and neighbors in Keene for Keenvention this October 31st through November 2nd. Only 100 tickets are available in advance, so lock yours in now for just $60 or with Bitcoin. Reserve your tickets now at keenvention.info. Visit keenvention.info for more, or look for our page and event on Facebook. That's keenvention.info.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at weusecoins.com. That's weusecoins.com.
Andrew Michael Jones is a liberty-loving activist and participant in the Free State Project. He's also been accused of being one of the administrators of the infamous Silk Road Anonymous Black Marketplace. Andrew is facing a federal trial for multiple crimes with no victim. Whether or not he's the Silk Road and a portion of your purchase goes to benefit the Liberty Radio Network when you shop at Amazon via shop.lrn.fm.
This is the Onion Week in Review. Gushing women voters announced Monday that they just can't help but feel an uncontrollable attraction to the sexist Republican Party. Saying they should know better but just can't resist the GOP's reckless neglect of women's health issues, smitten females across the country are reportedly driven wild by the GOP's blatant chauvinism.
I can't say no to bold, misogynistic politicians who think their authority extends to my uterus. Whenever you vote for a Republican, you feel like you're doing something a little bit naughty.
Top officials within the U.S. military acknowledged Wednesday that they were desperate to be given just one solid war they could really knock out of the park. Citing a recent string of messy, ambiguous military engagements in the Middle East, members of the Pentagon brass called for a conflict against a sovereign nation with a standing army and a clear-cut bad guy who employs conventional tactics and weaponry.
No roadside bombs, no plainclothes militants fighting out among innocent civilians. Just a fair fight where two sides shoot at each other and someone wins. We're absolutely great at that.
This is the Onion News Network.
While our satellite channel is free to listen to, it's not free for us. You can help us cover our satellite costs with the chip-in on the right side of the page at lrn.fm.
There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek J on the Angel Clark Show.
I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good, I would call her. Wish I had a rabbit in a hat with a bat and I was like 6'9", so I could get with Leo.
The Angel Clark Show returns. I'm your host for this evening, Derek J. You can learn about me at derekj.me. It's a blog where I'll be posting video of this episode, as well as audio, a podcast feed, blog article, links to all the stories we're talking about. You can go there, find a chat room of other listeners built right into the webpage so you can interact with others. Talk about the same stories we're talking about. You can even call in and share your stories, because whenever I host the Angel Clark Show, I leave phone lines open. I don't always put those phone numbers out there, but if you're special enough, you can seek out the number and call in. Now we return to a story that originally appeared at truthdig.com, but was reposted to antiwar.com with the author's permission. That author is Reese Ehrlich. He's a foreign correspondent who dabbles in political satire while writing his forthcoming book, Syria's Uprising, Assad, the Rebels, and U.S. Policy. You can learn more at his website, reeseehrlich.com. And we've been recapping over almost the last full hour the 10 myths about Obama's latest war in Iraq and Syria. And I think this is really important to drill into our heads, to pre-program ourselves, to let ourselves know the propaganda machine is coming. And it's going to be spraying all kinds of lies at us. So you get your bullshit detector ready and make sure that you know what's really going on. I'm taking from a guy who knows. He's a veteran foreign correspondent who was in northern Iraq at the start of the bombing campaign, and he's been interviewing people on the ground. We've gone through the 10 myths. Now we're at number 10. The U.S. never negotiates ransoms with terrorists, unlike those slippery French. But is that true? Turns out, no, it's not. The U.S. negotiated with the Taliban, possibly using third parties to free one American prisoner of war in Afghanistan in exchange for 5 Guantanamo prisoners. 2 of the American hikers held in Iran were released after the Sultan of Oman, at U.S. urging, paid Iran what was euphemistically called bail. As a freelance journalist reporting from the Middle East for 28 years, I have a particular interest in the release of kidnap victims. But I've also learned that kidnapping is an opportunistic crime. First, the person is snatched. Then, the kidnappers figure out the nationality and potential ransom. The kidnappers know the U.S. will okay ransom payments when the pressure is great enough. Washington is enjoying the happy first stage of a new war. Obama officials provide optimistic reports about pinpoint bombing raids. The mainstream media dutifully convey the latest propaganda. Public opinion polls show support for administration resolve. But as we saw in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq, U.S. military power has limits. The war will be lost politically. Public opinion will shift against another unnecessary war. And Obama will join President Bush as yet another failed wartime president. So let's recap these 10 lies quickly so that you can identify them when they come on over the Fox News propaganda machine. The Islamic State, the newest boogeyman in the war on terror, which is really a war against your freedoms. The Islamic State presents an immediate threat to the people of the U.S. No, it doesn't. The U.S. is not waging war, but a counterterrorism operation. It's war. The U.S. has no boots on the ground, but it actually has combat troops in Iraq, and they're using American spotters in the Kurdish region of Iraq to provide coordinates for airstrikes. The U.S. advisors are armed and would shoot if attacked. What do you call it? These are combat troops. Number 4, the U.S. has formed a viable coalition to defeat the Islamic State. Nope, it's just self-interested parties around the world. Number 5, the U.S. can fight the Islamic State and other extremists without simultaneously helping Bashar Assad, Iran, and Hezbollah. You help one, you're hurting another. Number 6, the U.S. only supports moderate rebels. Well, we know that's not true because moderates don't overthrow governments. Number 7, the U.S. fights to defend human rights and the rule of law, not oil. The U.S. doesn't care about human rights and the rule of law. It cares about what it can gain, what military advantage it can achieve. Number 8, President Obama has the legal authority to bomb both Iraq and Syria. Sure, if you believe that the current war is based on the 2001 congressional vote authorizing action against al-Qaeda for its 9/11 attack. But the Islamic State isn't part of al-Qaeda. And the 2001 era Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden, is long gone. President Obama has no authority to bomb Iraq and Syria. Number 9. The Kurdish leaders are staunch allies against the Islamic State. No, they're not. They only fought the Islamic State one time when their territory was threatened. And if their territory ceased being threatened, they would stop fighting the Islamic State. Simple as that. I think this all stems from people forgetting that there are more than 2 players on this chessboard, because chess is just 2 people, right? This is really a game of Risk. This involves, like 6 or more, hundreds more, millions more, billions more. Every human being on this planet is a sovereign country to his own. Now, lie number 10. The U.S. never negotiates ransoms with terrorists, unlike those slippery French. Again, that's not true. The U.S. has done it and will continue to do it, with or without proper authority. And this only gets more complicated as Jason Ditz reports at antiwar.com that the Turkish parliament has now authorized new wars in Iraq and Syria for themselves. It wasn't any real surprise. About 300 to 100 was their vote in the Turkish. But it approved the government's mandate to launch military actions inside Iraq and Syria. So you know what that means. This mandate will allow Turkey to grant usage of their military bases to other nations involved in the war against ISIS, meaning the U.S. and its friends are going to have access to Turkish airfields that they were previously denied. Yep. This war in the Middle East is getting even more complicated, but we're not taking our eyes off it for even 1 second. This is the Angel Clark Show.
Have you been left wanting, tasting, trying to find that perfect mouth-watering e-liquid to satisfy your urges? But it seems that nothing is quite right. Tempt your taste buds and experience the truly refreshing taste of the Plume Room with e-liquids like vapor-approved banana pudding, candy Cavendish, or honey fig tobacco. There's something for everyone. With sample sizes available, you can find the taste that's right for you. The Plume Room has received 8 Spin Fuel Choice Awards and was rated a perfect score from the Vaporator. Experience the freshness of every bottle and indulge yourself in the sweet aroma of the Plume Room's artisan e-liquids. Use the code ANGELCLARK for 10% off your order and satisfy your desires today at theplumeroom.com. The Plume Room, it's time to unwind.
What if the key to achieving liberty in your lifetime was to move together with others who think like you? Liberty activists are joining the Free State Project, which is over 70% of the way to its goal of 20,000 participants. And they're already making the move to New Hampshire. The successes are piling up and are proving the Free State Project is a real movement and no longer just a great idea. When you're planning your move, consider Keene. Keene is famous for its civil disobedience and non-cooperation, and there's plenty of political opportunity as well. From demonstrations and vigils to outreach and volunteering, there's a lot going on in Keene. Keene is the liberty media capital of the world, with television, talk radio, and more, all originating here. Though it's more than just activism, with regular social events each week. See what's happening at freekeene.com and get connected with video, audio, free books, a forum, and activist tools you can download and use in your area at freekeene.com. That's freekeene.com.
Liberty activists around the country are starting to realize politics alone won't set us free. So what will? At Liberty on the Rocks, we believe the answer starts with living your principles, spreading ideas, and connecting with those around you. By starting a Liberty on the Rocks network, you can make a difference by uniting libertarian thinkers. Find out how much fun it is to build your local network from the ground up. Visit libertyontherocks.org today to get started.
Did you know that you can listen to LRN.FM 24/7 via our free-to-air satellite channel? From Mexico to Canada, our signal covers nearly all of North America. All you need is a view of the southern sky, an affordable receiver, and a dish as small as 30 inches. There are no monthly fees. Learn more at sat.lrn.fm. Plus, if you're a broadcaster or want to be one, this is a good delivery method for our content. See our coverage map and get details at sat.lrn.fm. That's sat.lrn.fm.
Did you agree? Did you totally agree? I'll bet that you did. But did you read the agreement? There are 7 billion people on Earth, and there are over 6 billion active cell phone accounts right now. And every one of them came with an agreement. Billions have already agreed to allow entities that they do not know to use and abuse every feature of their mobile devices. Your computer activity is monitored and archived. Your car is tracked, and even your face is scanned. The current power structure grows more fearful every day of your desire for anonymity, independence, free association, freedom of movement, freedom of expression, and your freedom of thought. And entire categories of humans will be targeted. And if they, them, those that won't leave us alone determine that we are not within their control, then we will be categorized as out of control. FreedomsPhoenix.com will launch the next phase of the Levolution by the end of the summer of 2014. And if you have to tell your neighbors about it, then we did it wrong.
Do you love Twitter? Make sure you favorite the LRN.FM Twitter account so you can receive our tweets at twitter.lrn.fm. That's twitter.lrn.fm.
There's probably police at your door because you're listening to Derek Shea on the Angel Clark Show.
Welcome back, lovers and listeners. It's the final segment of the Final Friday show. This is the Angel Clark Show. Apparently, Ecuador is the best place to be an expat. So if the war is at home, if you in a tizzy, and have you saying, I'd rather be on a beach somewhere, drinking a margarita and thinking about the sun, maybe Ecuador is the right place for you. I've chosen New Hampshire. It's my place to leave and pursue more freedom. You can learn about over 1,000 people who have done the same already at freestateproject.org. That's freestateproject.org, a movement of over 20,000 liberty-loving people all convening into the same geographic location to get active for liberty in our lifetime. I'm unwilling to wait for my next lifetimes to enjoy peace and freedom in this world. I am not going to wait. I am going to have them in my lifetime. I'm only going to do that by joining up with others who are working on the same goal. But now, maybe you've had it with New Hampshire. You just can't stand it anymore. Whether it's the mainstream news, the culture, whatever. A new poll has determined that Ecuador, the small country in the remote northwest region of South America, is the best place to be an expat. This story from telegraph.co.uk. A survey completed by almost 14,000 expatriates of all nationalities, which focused on topics such as quality of life, work, romance, and leisure, show Ecuador was the overall winner. The country had the highest result of all countries for the ease of making friends. Over 8 in 10 found it easy to settle down and feel at home there, according to the poll conducted by Internations, which has 1.4 million members globally. It's not the first time Ecuador, population 15 million, has topped an expat life poll. Last year, expats who visit the International Living website voted it's the best place to retire overseas. Among the reasons for the popularity of the destination were the cheap cost of living, good weather, and top-class, yet affordable healthcare. Expats qualify for healthcare by paying a small monthly fee, while those looking for employment will find applying for work visa much easier than in many Western countries. Second place overall in the poll went to Luxembourg, the small landlocked European country, primarily due to its runner-up ranking in the working abroad section of the survey. 2 out of 3 expats reported career opportunities to be the most important reason for their move there. Luxembourg may be a good place to advance your career, but it only came 50th out of 61 countries in the category personal happiness. And expats also find it hard to make friends there, contributing to its ranking of 46th in that category. In contrast to Luxembourg, Mexico was a clear winner in the ease of settling in category, helping account for it achieving 3rd place overall in the expat survey. 9 in 10 expats reported they were pleased with their expat life in Mexico, the same percentage as the overall winner, Ecuador. Notably, Anarchapulco exists within the borders of Mexico. Jeff Berwick's adventurous life away from life. You can learn more, I believe, at his website, which is thedollarvigilante.com. On the opposite end of the scale in the Internations poll were Greece, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. Greece came in last place on the job and career category and had by far the lowest score for job security, thanks to the economic crisis. Saudi Arabia ranked poorly thanks to its lack of leisure activities, but coming last was Kuwait. Expats there do not think it's easy to settle, make friends, or feel at home, according to the poll. The Internations survey was one of several pieces of research into expat life published this week. Another was the NatWest International Personal Banking Quality of Life Index, which examined British expatriate opinions and attitudes on lifestyle, employment, and financial status. For the 2nd year running, Australia was listed as the top destination for Britons, with 87% of those living there intending to stay for the long haul. Respondents said that life down under was happier, healthier, and wealthier. There's a list which you can examine at the Telegraph, the NatWest International Personal Banking Quality of Life Index, which does rank Australia at the top. Singapore makes it to the top 5, as does China. But Canada came in 2nd, and the United Arab Emirates in 3rd, as they did last year. This is the Quality of Life Index, remember. It's compiled by the NatWest International by the Center of Future Studies. The index tracked a 7-year shift in country rankings since 2008, and most notably in 2014 revealed the rise of the Far East, with China, Singapore, and Hong Kong soaring up the league table. China saw the highest increase in scoring witnessed in the index, jumping 6 places in the last year from 11th to 5th position. The study was carried out between May and June 2014 among over 1,000 British expats. A third poll presented a gloomier perspective. According to a survey of 1,000 Britons who had spent more time than 6 months traveling abroad, the majority, 60%, said their time overseas did not broaden their mind. Meanwhile, 14% complained that their time traveling had made it harder to get a job back in the UK. It seems former expats are not always well received by their friends when they return from their travels either. 29% polled said they were sick of hearing their friends' traveling stories, and 12% felt that their friends had returned with a false sense of superiority. So what about you? Why are you considering leaving the country? And where are you considering moving to? Has this changed your opinion? One of the places I've always liked to live, Costa Rica, made it to number 11 on the survey. Not quite top 10. Giving me pause and maybe some consideration for visiting some of these other countries first. Perhaps Hong Kong, the Philippines, or even Singapore. You don't know until you try it. Finally, let's turn to a story from freekeen.com where an assault on language continues as Ian Freeman parking enforcement rebrands itself as parking services. In a desperate attempt to seem less threatening, the City of Keene Parking Enforcement has rebranded as Parking Services, as though anyone will be fooled into thinking they provide any service of value whatsoever. Fact is, the only services they provide are enriching the city's coffers. They certainly aren't serving peaceful motorists unless you consider the threats they serve to be of value. Who are they serving when they steal the car of a poor single mother who's fallen behind in paying parking tickets? They're only serving themselves. The money they collect goes to pay their paychecks and fund their continued threats against you. This has been the Angel Clark Show. I'm your host, Derek J. Head over to my website, derekj.me. And in the meantime, you can get more Angel Clark Show at her website, radiofreedom.us. Angel will be returning to this program Wednesday of next week from 3 to 5 p.m.
Since time began, tyrants have taken aim at personal liberties. Now there's a movie that